tell you what.
Chuck, what's going on, man?
Not much, man. Busy week.
How the baby's doing? I know that you had Alex Bourne over, and you started some feeding trials.
Yeah, my little redheaded stepchild stopped by for the weekend. We attempted 4, and all 4 took within seconds. So after he left, I attempted 5 more. 2 out of those 5 took. So we're up to 6 that took their very first meals. The last 3 that refused were biting, wrapping, and dropping. So it's only a matter of probably a week, if that they take it. They already got the movements down. They're just still too new. And it seems like this clutch is taking a little bit longer to shed out. I forget what day I'm on. Maybe like 17 or something like that, and still have 10 yet to shed out. So I'm not too worried about it. They're big, robust babies. Obviously, all of them so far appear to be good feeders, or at least have it down. They're striking like crazy when I go to mist them and stuff. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with it.
It's better than running away, right?
Yeah. I'm so confident in them. I actually, I guess this is a Chondro Lounge public exclusive release. I am starting to take some deposits on only a few, because they're looking good, seem to be on the right track, and I'm going to give people the opportunity to at least lock a slot down, and then when I know who's going to be good or whatever, I will start to let people pick in the order that deposits were taken. So
awesome, man. I'm excited. They look good. And any other pairings you got going?
I got a lot going on. The next 2 days are crazy. So I have the Maniac repeat clutch with Christoph the Maniquari and Waffle the Biak that created my Maniacs last time. They've locked up, I think, 3 or 4 times in the last 9 or 10 days. I'm going to be separating them soon to feed Waffle. And
Waffle.
It seems to be, yeah, my kids name my snakes, bro. And I have the 2 Biaks in quarantine that have just, they're clear of it now. I just gave some precautionary topical mite treatments to them. They've been clear of mites for about 8 weeks now. But they need to be moved out of quarantine because I have 3 adult females coming tomorrow. They're in the mail right now from the other side of the country. So
nice.
3 good-looking animals too. I got a red Biak, a nice yellow Jayapura female, and then a red Jayapura female.
Oh, nice. Awesome. The blue hues are going to come in with age on that one. I'm excited.
Yeah, and then I just I have a snake on its way to DFW right now. In the air. Luckily, Brian Phillips, shout out to him. He was the looks like the only one that's getting a Maniac from the Maniac clutch.
Okay, dude. If it was anybody that's gonna, I feel like Brian Phillips probably has a snake from every chondro breeder right now.
Yeah. Plus, I gotta listen. He's a aspiring, and
he's a cool dude, man.
I think he's gonna do good things with it, and figured I'd send it to the chondro mecca, the DFW area.
Right, exactly. Man, all right, we got episode 12, and Chuck, I'm excited for this episode. We have Garik with House of Blues coming on, and I think I've said this in previous episodes, and I don't know, some people might call me crazy, some people might say like, damn, you're right, but my number 1 favorite chondro that has ever been produced, that's a big statement because there's been some legendary animals out there, but is his male Gemini. It's the quintessential blue snake with the yellow diamonds, and my obsession with yellow diamonds, and we'll bring up his Instagram so we can drool over his animals. But I don't know about you, Chuck. I want to get into his mindset. For some reason, when you look at his page, you look at his animals, I see a plan. Like I see someone who has been detail oriented, who is like working a craft and perfecting it. And, one thing that takes me back early on in the Chondro line is when we did the interview with Mark Hager.
Mhm.
And Mark Hager just is like on that proponent of like, find like a lineage, find something that you love and just like keep working it and working it. And that's exactly what Garik has been doing. So I'm excited to talk to him.
Yeah, it's interesting. I cheated a little bit before this episode. Being Garrett connected for the first time at the mayor's party, during NARBC, and my wife and I had the pleasure of speaking with him and his girlfriend, and he reached out to me, a few days ago and was like, "Hey, man, you just want to chat?" And got on the phone with him and started BSing a little bit, and I was like, "Hey, Gemini,
Right.
is it really that blue? Is it the shade?" Like I use the shade, everybody
Right.
does.
Everyone does. It looks good.
It's a true representation. If you're, it's actually less of a representation if you're in person. In person, you can never, get the camera to show what you're looking at unless you edit them. And he's like, "Yeah, FaceTime me right now." He's like, "You want to see some snakes?" I was like, "Yeah." What are you kidding me? It's like my wife telling me, "You want me to send you a nude?" Absolutely.
Yes. Always yes.
So yeah, FaceTimed, and in the crappiest light possible, that snake is freaking blue, man. As are many of them. Just wow. I mean, just unbelievable. They're beautiful animals. He does give an accurate representation of what they are. And I love the fact that he doesn't try to push the envelope or lie or sell false promises by saying his snakes are going to turn that color. He says, "These are the parents. This is what I would like to get for them. Let me walk you through the steps," and takes care of his customers. And I've heard a lot of really good things about Garik, and they all came to really fruition. And he proved it when I spoke to them, and we did the FaceTime and stuff like that, and talking to him in person. He's a great dude. Almost too nice, because it doesn't seem like there's like a mean bone in his body, so you're almost reluctant to make like a dark joke or something like that. But he's a good dude. He's young too, man. God, he's young.
Yeah, that's another thing that I think I want to touch on too is the success he's had at the age he's at. And success can come at young, down the road, doesn't really matter, especially when it comes to snakes, right? I will say this: it's going to be hard to be a 70-year-old retic breeder, right? But I mean, like working with chondros, it's really not all that energy exerting or exhausting. So, yeah, I'm excited to jump in with him. Before we do that. What I do want to do is remind everyone that we have a couple new sponsors. Now, one of them, I'm rocking his hat. I'm rocking his shirt right now. That is Jordan Carpenter with Hearland Reptiles. We have not, I haven't been able to finish his ad yet, so it's not playing at the beginning of the episode like we do with AE Foundry. But Hearland Reptiles, he's known making these just bulletproof enclosures for reticulated pythons and large species. These enclosures are manufactured out of a really, really durable aluminum that's used for outdoor storage that literally, they have storage units out in that property that have been out there for over 60 years and are still in great condition. And he just scaled them down for chondros. He's one of my best friends, and between me and Mark Hager, we talked about a chondro design enclosure. And Chuck, we got to get yours sent to you. I got a couple of his. I bought one. He sent one over to me as well. But they're phenomenal enclosures. So if you guys are looking for a lifetime enclosure for your chondros, you cannot go wrong with the Heartland enclosures. Now, Chuck, what was your thoughts when you saw them in person?
Exactly right. As far as bulletproof, it's like, wow, that's solid. That's a decent looking enclosure. So I'm excited to get it and put it through its paces, and get a panel mounted in it, see how they take drill bits and stuff like that with drilling some custom holes and whatnot. We actually spoke about it at Bill's house.
He says it drills like butter.
That's what he said. I'm super excited about it. It's unique. It's definitely different. I don't like different, But when I saw it, when I saw it in person, I was like, all right, you know what, this is actually pretty nice. So I'm excited to get it and put my hands on it and put it in my room and put a green tree in it, because I need cages, bro. I got so many animals coming in. It's unbelievable. I got 2 more adults coming behind these 3 other adults that I'm getting tomorrow. So
Right.
I'm gonna need some cages.
Yeah, I'm about to put my import Biak in her 30-inch long enclosure here in the next couple weeks. I just need to go and get some perches and stop being. I tend to, with all the work that I got to do with all the snakes in the garage, I tend to put things off for a while, but I'm really motivated to get her in there. But before we bring them on as well, I also want to give a shout out to Cold Blooded Cafe. Cold Blooded Cafe is one of our newest sponsors as well. Please use code Reptile Lounge 20 for 20% off. Guys, if you are looking for feeders in the game, these guys are the ones you want to go to. There's a reason why I reached out to these guys to get them to be a sponsor of TRL Network, is because every single chondro breeder just is constantly talking about using these guys as feeders. I started getting their product, and it does not disappoint. Des, Chris, the team over there at Cold Blooded Cafe is really cool. They'll work with you. Any issues come up, they'll talk with you about them. They'll make it right, but that's happened very far in between. And any time that I've ever had a package come to me, maybe even a little bit thought out, they no questions asked, they send you more. They are a phenomenal company with phenomenal feeders. So Chuck, with that being said, you ready to get Garik on?
Let's do it. Let's get this thing started.
Whether you've poured your heart and soul into your reptile business or you've just begun your business journey, AE Foundry has you covered with next level expertise in graphic design, motion graphics, videography, photography, and so much more. If you've been dying for a new logo for your reptile business, motion graphics for your current logo, a new website, or need assistance making your video podcast come to life, then listen carefully. AE Foundry's mission places storytelling at its core. AE Foundry believes that a distinctive story and background are the driving forces that set your brand apart. In today's market, consumers seek more than just products. They crave a connection built on trust with the brands they cherish. AE Foundry is committed to empowering small businesses and fostering authenticity that resonates with their consumers. Reach out to them and let them help you craft a visual narrative that helps establish a genuine and lasting connection with your audience. To contact AE Foundry, email them at aromero@aefoundry.com or on Instagram at AE Foundry. What's up? Oh, you're muted. Start off the episode muted.
Well, I would do something like that.
What's going on?
What's up, brother?
Same old. Excited to be here.
Yeah, man.
Chop it up.
Look, can I ask you a question?
Of course.
I'm throwing this out there. The House of Blues. You're sitting on a chair behind you. Is this a Game of Thrones reference?
No. No. This was a little housewarming present to myself.
Oh, nice.
When I got my house, I saw these thrones and I was like, you know what? I want to open the door and have this throne be the first thing I see. Just know it, 'cause it's yours. It's
right.
It's
Lucas,
your throne. Kind of. And I got 2 of them.
Chuck's about to roast me.
He spent all of Bill's party.
I am. You
chair and again on FaceTime. It was beautiful snake. I like your throne. Beautiful snake. This guy's got a throne. Like so.
Yeah, I did. Lucas, you just missed out on one of the best opportunities ever.
Are you talking about?
You just said just now. You're like, I'm just throwing this out there. You should have said, I'm just going to throw this out there.
Thrown. Okay. Jeez, you're listen. You've been a dad a little longer than I have. You got a little bit more under your belt.
No, that's clever, is what that is.
That's a dad joke.
That was really good. That was witty.
Man. Garik, man, thanks for coming on. I know that we've been trying to get the schedule for a few weeks now. I appreciate your flexibility. If you don't mind just starting us off, letting our listeners know who you are, And if you want to go into some of the history as far as like, you know, what got you into reptiles, feel free to do that. I also want you to kind of cover a little bit about, you know, when you got into chondros and I guess what sparked that interest for you.
Well, similar to probably both of you, I've been into reptiles my entire life. I mean, I would say I had a ball python in high school as well, and then eventually I got another one, and then I believe when I went to college, I sold them off. I got a trio of Brazilian rainbow boas when I was like 20, 21, but they were really messy, very, very messy, and I ended up letting those go. And then I guess the day I graduated, I bought my first chondro. So it was a green Maruke, dark green, very nice.
Wait, the day you graduated, what?
UCLA. So
okay.
I've always been into arboreals. You know, I had panther chameleons. Yeah, just the color is outstanding, and believe it or not, it was the green color that drove me to green tree pythons. Yeah, it was that dark green color, man. It was so pretty when I saw it the first time, and then those little yellow and red Biak babies, they were just striking. You know, when you'd go to a show and you'd see that, they were always just the belle of the ball. So yeah, I guess that's what got me in, and then blue snakes are what got me breeding.
Okay.
Wanting to breed. Yeah.
I was on the phone with Nick Mutton a couple days ago, and we were kind of talking like the conversation. If any of you have ever talked to Nick Mutton, man, you go around the world, you talk about everything in one conversation. And we got on the topic of chondros, and we both just like at the same time we're talking about like the most beautiful type of green tree python, and we both said Aru. Right. And so like I even for me, like just like what got me into them, and even to this day, I just find like classically beautiful is that, you know, that lime green and the white speckling, right, with like the blue underside. But the more I get into this, and I'm a locality guy, but the more I get into this, man, the designer stuff, when you see it in person, it's life changing. It looks crazy.
I think there's room for all.
Yeah.
You can really love them all when you give it a shot.
Yeah. So you said when you got into breeding, you wanted to go into blue. Was there any influence that you had? Was there anything that like you saw? Was there a specific snake, a specific breeder's portfolio? What was it?
No, I mean, the thing that got me really wanting to breed was my own snake. I'll be honest. When I saw Kronos just blue standing right there with those yellow and lime diamonds, it was one of the most striking things I'd ever seen in my life. And I guess I told Chuck this too, right there. And then I just knew like I had to recreate this look. Like it would be such a tragedy if it was just a pet. I mean, there's nothing quite like seeing an animal that's even prettier than your imagination. You know, like it's I couldn't have drawn that. You know, like God had to have made something that beautiful, and it really is. Like I'm sure many of you on like watching own snakes that you just stare at them for minutes on end and you're just mesmerized. I guess that's what I wanted to recreate, and I couldn't see myself not doing that, not centering a project around this magnificent snake and recreating it.
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot to be said about blue chondros. And, you know, I don't know, at least from my perspective, when I was doing a lot of research and getting into like, and I'm talking about like a while ago, blue has always kind of been the buzz, right? Like I think that everybody is gravitated towards blue chondros because you know their name, green tree pythons, and then you see a blue one and you're like, whoa. And then, you know, we'll actually, I'll just, I'll share this right now as we're talking here, but, you got all spectrums of blue, dude. I mean,
you know, it's even, sorry to interrupt, you know, going back to what Garik said, you know, it's even cooler about making a cool snake yourself and having it in your collection, making a snake period, no matter what the species is, and then having it be the centerpiece of someone else's collection.
Right.
and seeing somebody else enjoy it. And you're like, damn, like I made that pet and that person is getting that much enjoyment out of it. Like that feeling is something that you're not even prepared for. And it's like, it's like having a kid. You don't realize how much you love that kid until you have a kid. But like having a snake that you make, it's cool. But then seeing somebody enjoy it even more than you did is just so rewarding. It's like, it makes me never want to not breed again. Like, it's so freaking cool. Like talking to Brian on the phone, like, hey, you know, your baby's in the mail. And he's just like, dude, tomorrow's going to be the best day ever. And I'm like, yeah, it is. Like, I'm so excited for you right now. Like, I can't wait.
No, I totally agree. It's a good feeling being able to put animals into other people's hands and watching them kind of admire. I love, like, I always tell people that I sell snakes to, like, please tag me, like update me. Let me know how it goes. Like, I love seeing that kind of stuff. For those of you that were listening at the beginning of the intro of this, and I was talking about my favorite retake ever produced, this is him.
Green tree.
Or I'm sorry, green tree. Yeah, I mean, this is, well, that's not him, but this is him. Yeah, I don't know. Does he still have a lot of the melanism, the black coming through the speckling?
Yeah, the only thing that's really changed about him, some of the, I guess he just has a few more blue scales than, you know, his blue is pretty light colored compared to other shades, I would say, you know, and it's a nice contrast with the bright yellow. That's the most recent pick right there, but that's in cage lighting, so not that it makes a difference.
In cage lighting, and this
that
thing
snake is that like. Yeah. Do you ever feel bad sometimes about posting pictures of that because it's just so offensive? Like that is just so that is unnecessarily blue. Like that's so ridiculous, bro. Like stop showing off.
I'll tell you something. I mean, when I've gone into the community first, and you know, sometimes you would see people talking about outdoor lighting, indoor lighting, and you know, like how somehow like just a snake wasn't as magical if it was taken outside. I thought it was the most ridiculous thing I'd ever heard. But you know, like now you have to just be like, oh, this is taken inside, you know, in case people's eyes aren't working and they can't see that, oh shit, the picture's inside. So it's inside.
What I will say is when I go to inquire about purchasing an animal and I look at an outside photo, I'm saying, hey, send me a picture of it inside.
Yeah, I mean, the more info, the merrier. As Chuck knows too, I FaceTime pretty much anyone who asks for it. You know, so.
That's transparency. That's pretty awesome. So, you know, before I just like keep talking about all these damn snakes, I'll share a little bit later. But so I'm curious. When was your first clutch you produced?
2019 they hatched, I think. Yeah, 2019.
Bro, you were just old enough to drink. Like, how is that even possible?
I don't even think he was old enough to drink.
No, he was still in high school. He was at prom and his snakes were hatching out.
I was 23. I was 23.
Bro, killing it in the game at such a young age. I mean, you're 28 now, but God, you got double digits worth of, you know, the amount of clutches under your belt. Like you're absolutely killing it, Garik. You really are.
Thank you.
And you're very humble. Like you're not cocky. I don't even think there's a cocky bone in your body.
Because ego is one of the most crushing weights that you can have. So,
I mean, I agree with that. I agree with that wholeheartedly. But like, who needs to be cocky when your Instagram is like it speaks for itself.
I would be if I was producing crap like that. Are you kidding me? Like at 28, you still have piss and vinegar inside you as a young male. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
He's so chill and laid back. He's like you're an old soul, is what you are.
So that's exactly embarrassing on my part. But me and Garik only had like one conversation at Bill's place, not even realizing that it was Garik. Because I thought the dude was older. And then my buddy, my employee James, I bring him over, and we're on our way back, and he's like, "Damn, man, it was so good talking to Garik, man." Because I've talked to him a lot about your animals. He's over a lot, and I was like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, "You talked to Garik?" And he's like, yeah, I talked to Garik. And I was like, no, you didn't. He was there. And he's like, yeah, dude, he was wearing the black shirt, had the nice hair. And I was like, shut up, man. I was like, are you serious right now? And then you and I got to messaging later, and yeah, just kind of, I guess just weren't expecting, like we talked to each other, but just didn't connect the dots.
Yeah. I feel like we know each other through the snakes that we all have,
Right?
Rather than the faces.
Yeah, he came up to me. He's like, "Hey, Chuck, what's going on?" I'm like, "Who the hell are you?"
I should have got.
Bill, you got a minor here at the party.
Yeah. Someone's selling candy bars. So what's going on? Who is this freaking young dude? Yeah,
Hey,
I mean,
that's like 2 years older than me. I don't know what he's talking about.
I'm old. I'm
You're
losing
like 2
my
years
hair,
old.
bro.
I mean, take off the hat then.
Yeah, I will. I had to shave my head before the episode. Look at this thing.
Good.
Dude, did you polish it too? Do you do this?
No,
one?
I'm sweating. I'm nervous. I'm in front of royalty here.
No, okay.
Sweating bullets. But, I mean, look at your hair. Your hair's nicer than your green trees, and you got some of the best green trees I've ever seen. Look at that! Look, did you see? Wait, did you see the little? It's like a girl with her engagement, and like, ah ha ha ha.
I mean,
Look at that full head of hair, bro.
I want to say thank you.
You might want to look into getting into commercials because, dude, Rogaine would hire you in a heartbeat if they could promise a head of hair like that.
Yeah, I only had known I wouldn't have trimmed my beard.
Right.
No, it was nice meeting you, bro. Like you and your girlfriend, friggin' great people, man. I mean, you definitely have. You don't have a personality that matches the snakes that you have, because I would imagine someone that has a collection like yours and produces at the rate that you're producing and the quality would be a lot more arrogant or a little bit more cocky than what you are, because you don't have a cocky bone in your body, brother.
Thank you.
Good dude.
I appreciate that.
Garik, I'd love to talk about how good looking you are, but we're gonna get back to chondros, okay?
I'm just trying to get a green tree from him. That's all.
It's already in the mail.
I'm curious. We're gonna dive into your husbandry. We're gonna dive into like your breeding. But before we do that, because we're talking about your blue animals, and you kind of took us into, wanting to breed blue animals. I said this before, but when I see your Instagram page, I see vision, right? I got ADHD, so I learn a lot. I learn a little about a lot of things, but I have a background in marketing, and one of the things that I really, really appreciate in the reptile community is when people execute a vision, a plan, and then they are able to share that through social media in a way that matches what that vision and plan is. And I'm curious for you, what's going on in your head with the animals that you're working with, right? Like, obviously House of Blues, you want to produce blue animals, but now that you're 4 generations in?
3 generations of blue, 3 generations in captivity.
Okay, so 4 generations of blue, 3 captive. What are you doing? Like, what is this vision? What is this plan? And again, I don't know if maybe I'm making this out more complicated than what your brain is making it, but I just see someone who has a mission and you're not steering away from it.
Well, I had a strategy going in, and I guess just the more I kept breeding, the more I kept reading, and I guess and just looking for, I guess, potential prospects to bring in, the more it just kept getting reinforced in my head that I guess my vision works, like what I think will happen. I just, you have to start brooding to see it, of course, but I had an idea before I really just started pulling out the first few clutches, and it was that the blue color comes from the Highlands, and let me rephrase, you can get blue in any green tree python that there is, but what I mean by the blue color, I mean like that solid blue, true blue look, and I mean eventually even a super blue look, but that's a completely different story. The true blue look is achieved from within the Highlands, because time and time again, you keep seeing these cyclops animals that come in that are not only true blue, but they pass it on to their offspring. You see occasionally very high blue monoquari coming in. Those are very potent. You see, I mean, well, not so much Wamena, but the very few examples that there were, yeah, Wamena, the little localities inside Karubaga, Bokandini, just
Right.
yeah, but you see blue animals coming from within those regions too. Of course, these you have to go by the importer's word, but approximately it's Eastern type animals, Western type animals, and it's always coming in from these red animals, and more often than not, they're also red dominant. So that's not always and this, again, not trying to offend anyone out there who has a project that they're working on that, they might take a completely different viewpoint as me, but this is just the way I saw things after my research. So just disclaimer. But it seemed as though they were all reds and they were Eastern or Western type highland animals. And I just kept seeing it over and over again. And they were the ones that, again, passed it on to the next generation. Because you would see oftentimes these Beox that would come in that were burnt blue, from some sort of extreme LED light or UVB bulb. You would see hormonal Arus or Maruke types. You would see all sorts of stuff come in, even from within the Eastern and Western type animals. Every now and then you see both reds and yellows come in that are blue, but there's something a little bit off about them. It's more like scar tissue or whatever from long-term exposure to, I don't know what it is, sun, branches.
Right.
Jungle skin.
Yeah, they didn't typically pass it on, and I guess I had a vision that if I'm starting to breed from these wild caughts, F1s, these essentially fresh animals, these fresh bloodlines, why not make it into my vision of perfect? Choose only animals that are red, choose only animals that are blue or blue compatible and that are highland based. I guess for my main focus. And then eventually along the way, of course, you can focus on other side projects and have fun with it. I've had a lot of fun with Womaniacs and produced some beautiful stuff. Blue Jay, one of the chondros I've had really good results from, was a mix Aru girl. She produced some incredible blue animals. I mean, and
what does she mix with? I'm sorry to interrupt. What does she mix with?
So she was supposed to be a pure Aru. So my mentor, good friend of mine who produced her, he produced her from animals that were Arus, but I personally believe that they might be crossed somewhere down the line. In the previous generation, the parents of that girl crossed with Jaya on one side and Sarong on the other. So as to not misinform other people, I just say it's a mixed locality. But she is probably majority Aru, if not all Aru. You never know, but I'm pretty sure she's mixed Aru and Yellow Neo Sarong, Yellow Neo Jaya on that end. But yeah, and her blue is also hormonal blue. She does have very large saddling, very large or that blue spread from the bottom and from the top, body patterning. But the majority of the blue that you guys see is hormonal. I don't believe that passes on into the next generation and produces a true blue look. I believe it's just the strength of, let's say, one of my males, the potency of his blue. And then, of course, I have another theory as to second generation magnification. But yeah, it's that combined with whatever, I guess, good genes that Blue Jay presented as well, produced the ones that are blue. And then I believe it's also the extreme difference within the two that produced animals that are very melanistic, like the one that is on my page and a few others that I sold. But yeah, that's what I mean. Those are side projects. My main focus has been, I guess, pure highland-based animals. And as far as the vision goes, sorry, now kind of now that I've explained.
So real quick, I'm sorry. We're gonna get back to the vision because you mentioned two different theories that you just kind of like blurted out, and I kind of want some more information. So I guess because I had this picture up here, you talked about two opposing extremes taken together, and you think that that's more likely to create melanism?
Yeah. So I guess my theory on melanism. By the way, there's a newer photo of that one. I think I have a video up there too. If yeah, it's very melanistic. But I guess I had a theory pretty early on.
Holy shit!
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Keep going.
I had a theory early on that there are like a few things that can cause melanism that I've seen personally. So one of which is an extreme similarity of genes. So essentially, it's if you have two animals that are both very black or have that in their OCC or whatever, if you breed them enough, of course you will pull it out. Or an extreme similarity being of course, yeah. Well, I'll leave it at that. Just an extreme similarity of genes. Let's say if you combine them, two extreme difference of genes. So that happens when you take animals that are worlds apart from each other. So let's say like the most basic version of a locality with, let's say, some sort of designer. I guess they're worlds apart from each other. When you breed them, there's a possibility of black there. That's why you can. Oh, can you guys still hear me? Or
we can still hear you.
Oh,
Yeah, you're a little bit frozen, but we can hear you.
Yeah, my screen froze. Yeah, I was gonna say that's why like sometimes you can get like a Wamena to a Biak, or just Aru Biak or Maruke Biak. They're just so different from one another that when you combine them together, it produces this black or black rain or dusting, whatever you want to call it, but it can happen from an extreme difference. Third is kind of obvious. It's inbreeding. So you see it a lot when I guess people do some very concentrated pairings. Oftentimes,
hey Garik,
yeah.
If you don't mind, do me a favor. Since you're still frozen, I don't know if this is going to end up being the same way in post-production. If you don't mind, like just refreshing, hopping back in so that we can bring you back on.
I got you.
While we're on the topic of like a new, going into a new topic.
Okay.
Dude, looking through his Instagram is freaking ridiculous.
Yeah, it's doesn't make sense. It's
No.
it like in a good way. I
Yeah.
mean that in a good way. It's just what he's doing is just freaking crazy with locality animals. Gives me a little bit of hope with what I'm doing with some just putting shit together. That I'd like seeing what comes out. He had an opinion about my two maniacs that are changing right now that are starting to get some darker scales.
I like that.
And he seems to think they're. Are we cutting this out or are we keeping this?
No, we're keeping this.
Okay.
So,
see, I don't want to say too much and like give.
No, I get it. So I mean,
he had a lot of really good things to say about the maniacs that are changing to have darker scales. And
first and foremost, and he's back in here, and we'll say this. Listen, at the end of the day, it's one thing as a breeder to sell an offspring and not give false hope. It's another thing to provide a professional opinion based off of observation to a buddy, right?
Yeah, I don't want to get excited, but I mean, he had some really good things to say about, the two maniacs that are doing some cool stuff through OCC that I have.
Right. I mean, and again, like, I can even go back to, when I got a Bill's animal who has a lot of melanism. It's a great looking animal. And Patrick was next to me and I had a couple to choose from. And Patrick just kind of was like, I think I would go with this one. This is why. Kind of pointed out some things, and the snake's a banger, dude. It's awesome, right? So I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But anyways, Garik, welcome back.
Hi. Based on what you just said, though, I don't think there's a way to predict melanism until the OCC starts. A lot of people will tell you like, oh, it's a really dark neo. Oh, it's extreme. Its diamonds are this way. And they can swear by it, but if it's not in the genes or you didn't get lucky, obviously either or.
Right.
There's no way to predict it until the OCC starts, and then I think you see like a bright orange, right? Is that what happened with yours? I mean, like a brick red, almost bright orange look, and then eventually scale by scale. No?
So no, mine was pretty crisp. So it was produced by Bill, so it's from the Jaeger line, right? So it's produced some melanism before, and then also there's on the dam side there's malachite that also has good melanism. But so it was a obviously red neo, some yellow, some white diamonds. But by the time that I got it, I think it was like 7 months old, you could kind of start to see a darkening on the top of it. And as the OCC continued, that darkening kept getting darker and darker and darker. And then eventually some tiny little bits of greens came in, but you would see blacks on the side just start to speckle through. And then, the dorsal went blue. That was kind of one of the first things that really started happening besides the top part of the body going dark. But yeah, Patrick was just kind of able to see the separation of the coloration of like the original red and then the darker that was coming in.
So it started in its OCC essentially, but
yeah, it was very early, but yeah,
it was also in the genes. I mean, you had
exactly
there and then Freight Train, right? So
no, so it was actually the pairing was Jaeger to Clover.
Well, there you go then.
Yeah,
there you go. But yeah, I guess it was already in the genes, and it had that, I guess, difference of high yellow to black.
Right.
And then I guess there was a fourth way in which I told Chuck the other day too. But I don't believe it's real melanism, and this is nothing to do with yours, by the way. This is just in general. And I've seen it on chondros that I've produced as well. Specifically only one or two that were very difficult eaters back some years ago. When an animal is very small, very, very small, and it starts hitting its OCC, it goes through a sort of very, very concentrated amount, like a very concentrated amount of color comes in, giving it that black look. So I don't think that's a real form of melanism personally. Same thing with, let's say, like those like faux brownish black looking animals. But what I'm talking about specifically, I've seen it in a couple that, again, they were difficult eaters. They were maybe like 20, 30 grams when they started changing. And they look black, essentially, like to the naked eye and to photos. But what it really is I don't think that scale is large enough to hold the amount of color that's concentrated in it. So even if it's green or whatever, the amount of pigment in that one scale is just too much, and it looks dark, very dark.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and a little bit of like a fun lighting, and boom, that snake is pitch black. But that's not really like a version of melanism, in my opinion. That's just something that happens.
Now, I'm curious. Another thing that you said was about second generation crossing, as far as getting extreme. So you were talking about extremes, and then, the second generation is where you said something that I guess led me to believe that second generation pairing is really important.
Okay. So specifically on Blue Jay, well, actually, let me go back. The more generations you have, the more selective you can be. But what I'm referring to specifically is, let's say, take it in something as simple as a locality cross. So let's say all your animals are pure, the ones you're working with, and you get, let's say, an Aru and a Biak, and you mix them together. And let's say you're breeding for high yellow. That next generation, you get a high yellow animal, let's say, and you select it, you keep it back. Sorry, high yellow. I meant high white. Let's say you get a high white animal, you're gonna want to breed that back to the Aru, to expand on that, to expand on that white. So I guess when I say second generation magnification, it means what are you trying to work on? So let's say you're talking about highland-based animals. If you get a monoquari and a cyclops animal, you breed them together. You're aiming for, let's say, like as much blue as possible, and you get this really beautiful animal. Let's say hypothetically it looks like, it it looks beautiful. Let's say if you breed that next generation to Jayapura, I believe you're going to work on the diamonds. You know, you're going to work more towards having like prettier diamonds, yellower diamonds, larger diamonds. You breed it to a Monoquari, you're probably going to work towards that blue spine if that's what it's strong with, and if not, then you're going to work towards a sharpness in the diamonds. You know, that's what I mean. You're expanding on that second generation on whatever trait that you were working on in the first, but you're doing it through, I guess, localities.
Okay, cool. No, that totally makes sense. That second generation is what you're trying to capitalize on and what you're looking for. You pick the animal that's closest to what you're looking for, and you maximize it.
A perfect example based on something I do when I breed the Womaniacs, it's a very volatile pairing. You don't know which way it's going to go. But if you were to get something, let's say that's high yellow, you're going to want to probably breed it towards another Biak outcross to keep that going.
Yeah.
You know, you get something that has a little more of a Highlandy look to it. You can breed it.
Mute it.
Direction. Yeah, it depends. That second generation is when you can have fun with it. That's why typically with Blue Jay, for example, she's a second generation of Aru, if you will. I mean, even though she has it on both ends, let's consider her a pure one. In the next generation, her offspring are going to be more likely to have that blue spread that an Aru might contribute than in Blue Jay's generation.
Right.
That's what I mean by that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's go back to the vision, right? So the original question was just kind of like what this vision is, what it's looking like. Also, I want to make fun of you real quick. You have an amazing page that you have all these blue animals. Watch, I'll show this. Hold on, I'll start kind of at the top. And it's funny because you were talking about the Womaniac to, the Biak pairing. And so, you look at all these blue animals, right? You're starting at the top and you're like, damn. And yours is the only page I would even say this because I love Biaks, but damn. And then all of a sudden, just like a green snake. It's like, what are you doing?
And it's still a very impressive snake.
And it's a beautiful Biak, right? But like when you look at everything else, it's like, what are we doing here?
That if you scroll, that photo didn't do her any justice.
Dude, that sire is great.
That's the sire, yeah.
Oh, there she is. So,
even still, I mean, you guys know this on your own animals. When you see those animals in person, some of them don't take photos nearly as well. Like she is definitely one of them. She has like a large black ink spot on her. Her diamonds are well defined. She has a lot of black. And based on previous Womaniac pairings, I know that melanism is one of the looks that gets magnified when you breed Womaniacs, or at least my Womaniac. I've seen it happen with a different female that had virtually 90% less black than she did. So I've seen it in Blue Moon's other offspring. I just know, for example, that's a pairing that's going to produce a few extremes that are going to go in that direction. If of course the dice roll in my favor that way. But it's one of the higher likelihoods of extreme traits that I could produce from a pairing like that. Right. That's what I mean to say. And typically those are also very great magnifiers as well. People who are familiar with chondros know that Biaks and Womanas are used to magnify specific traits. Biak is really good at magnifying virtually any trait other than blue. So be it melanism, be it high yellow, be it high white, even in some people's calico pairings, they use Biak and they don't skip a beat. They still get just as phenomenal of results in the next generation. And then Womana, so many prominent bloodlines are built off of that. And whether or not people even recognized it, if you go back in some of their lineage charts, which I kind of did before I got started, I would see like, oh, this animal, it looks a lot more, let's say, it's an Eastern type animal. So let's say it's called Cyclops or Eastern type or whatever, but it looks like some of the early imported Bokandini animals. And regardless, even the ones that are recognized, they're pretty special. They have a lot of dusting to them. Even the most basic ones have good melanistic dusting. Some of them have good underlying blues. They have really strong diamonds, and oftentimes they're red dominant. It's almost like, for me, a dream locality to deal with.
Right.
Yeah.
So back to the vision statement. So I guess, like, where's your mindset, and what, like, are you looking to continue to do each generation? What does the future hold? Like, what are you trying to accomplish?
Yeah. So I guess when I realized that there weren't nearly as much Wamena out there, or attainable to be able to do a pure Wamena lineage, blue Wamena lineage, I started focusing on just blue highlands. So my goal always has been to recreate Kronos's look and Blue Moon's look, just over generations. And me personally, I don't think it could get very much better than those two, but I guess there are people like Lucas that say Gemini is prettier, so I guess there is room there for improvement. But for me, if that's all it's gonna be, I'm up to here and enjoy. So that's the goal, and I believe if every generation I stick to the plan, and eventually I want to tighten up the bloodline as much as possible, refine it, through some of these little classier versions of inbreeding. So let's say like half siblings, or occasionally like a father daughter. But again, I want to still maintain that same genetic diversity that I got them with, the same genetic diversity that gives me almost free reins to not worry about inbreeding. That's
right.
That even when I inbreed, I haven't skipped a beat in seeing enormous animals. Some of these babies are even bigger in the inbred clutches than they are in the outcrossed ones. It's, you pick your stock carefully at the beginning and you work with them, and I guess along the way you unlock certain genes and you try and breed for, this is just the definition of selective breeding. Everyone does it to some extent. So I would say I want to eventually keep the genetic diversity, so to work on other Highland bloodlines in the meantime, to add on to, I guess, my center focus, which is Blue Moon's lineage, and Blue Moon and Kronos, which are father and son, just to work on that. The next stage would be Gemini. I'm planning on breeding him to Phoenix. That's his half sibling. She's also some form of blue. Blue, green, whatever. And I believe the two of them together, I'm going to magnify size and color. Hopefully, that's the goal.
Is that the one that he just said is a?
That's Phoenix.
That's Phoenix.
You said she's kind of blue.
Yeah, she's not like
kind of blue.
Well,
this guy.
Oh my god!
This guy.
She's some shade, I don't know, blue green.
This friggin' guy. Next year when he walks into Bills, I'm gonna come in with a scroll and a jester outfit, and I'm just gonna be ringing a bell. Hear ye, hear ye.
Dude, check out that yellow.
Wow.
Dude, check out that yellow bottom.
It's a beautiful animal.
That is one of my favorites. She has a lot of ink spots on the bottom too on her scales. I believe that's for a marker of red dominance. So usually I've seen animals with the dark purple spots, ink spots. They're usually, from what I've seen, red dominant. I've also seen ones with lighter ink spots, and I believe that's because they had a parent that was red dominant. So they might not necessarily be red dominant themselves, but there is something there.
Right.
Oh, there's Angel. You can see she has a blue ink spot. In fact, actually, most of my blue snakes all of my blue snakes have an ink spot somewhere on their body. So it's just
interesting.
Yeah. That's good to
I've heard of the ink spots. I've just never, dove into it. So it's interesting that we're hearing your side of it.
That's because you produce yellow neos.
Yeah, I have shit imports is what I have.
You can get some pretty crazy stuff from yellow neos. If it's
for sure,
you stay on track with it. There's John Leckie's melanistic line, the black pearls. Robert Worrell and John Leckie's melanistic line. I mean, that was from, I believe it started from a brother-sister pairing. So that goes towards my theory of extreme similarity and inbreeding. They had it in the genes, they inbred it, and boom, it magnified. So that's usually when you see it stick.
Yeah.
Oftentimes you get an OCC, and it even happens to me all the time too. You get an OCC, and then half a year later, half of that is gone. So, sorry.
No, you're good. I'm looking over at your page and admiring some of the pairings that you're doing, but it's a good plan. And again, there's a lot of forethought that goes into it, and a lot of thought process that goes into it, and a lot of the information that you're talking about is anecdotal. But when you're 4 generations in, and you're like as observant as you are, I don't think it's something that people should be ignoring. Clearly, you're producing results. So I don't know. This is all really fascinating information. If it's okay with you, I kind of want to jump into a little bit about kind of your husbandry methods. Take us into what you're housing, neo to juvenile to, adult animals, and what you're heating and lighting method, and spraying. I guess if you can, just try to take us through a detailed husbandry 101, 102 course.
Okay. So from the moment they're born, they're put into a 6-quart tub up until they're anywhere from 80 to 120 grams. And then from there, they're approximately like 5 months, 5.5 months old at that age. Then they get moved into a 16-quart tub, to which they will be up until they are 300 to 350 grams. And then if they've made it in my collection for that long, I have not let go of them yet, they will get moved into their permanent enclosures, which are adult size cages, 3 by 2 by 1.5 tall. So all my racks, all my cages are built out of PVC. I use primarily racks actually for everything other than a cage. Before, I used to have like an intermediary phase where I tried in between the 16-quart tub and the adult size cage, putting them in 44 quarts. I found that I didn't like that. I would, if I have the space, I would much rather get them in a bigger cage. If again they're in, it's a move within my house. I would much rather move them to a bigger cage. I wouldn't recommend somebody does something like that if they're just receiving a snake. You know what I mean? Which again, so nobody in the crowd gets confused. Don't receive a snake that's meant for a 16-quart tub and put it in a cage thinking, like I'm giving it more options, more space. It doesn't work like that. So back to what I was saying.
I mean, no, that's totally valid.
I've had my words used against me. So, yeah, I love these racks, man. I'm going to tell you straight up, the racks are a lifesaver. They're super easy to clean. They're super easy to regulate. I with the thermostats that I use, which are Herb Stats or VE electronic ones. So long as it's a proportional one from a trusted place, I would say go for it. Keep it at 85 back heat up until they're ready for adult cages. And up until they're on 16-quart tubs, then I put it at like 84, 84.5. And then I keep the hot spot at 84.5 for my adult cages up until they're breeding ready, in which case then I'll introduce a night drop. So because adults, I mean, maybe it's to some extent beneficial to have like a difference between night and day, be it a couple degrees. So that's why I do it like that. Once they hit actually 3 years old, 3.5, they're pretty much adult sizes by then. That I don't call them adults because they still, the difference between 3 and 5, they still need their bone structure to become more dense, if you ask me.
Yeah.
So they're still sub-adults, The heat panels I use are from Reptile Basics. It's very simple. Okay, if I can leave the crowd with one thing or two things, 2 rules. One is the KISS method. Keep it simple. Just keep it simple always.
You forgot stupid.
Well,
See there's the not mean bone in his body.
There it is.
There it is.
well, I mean, you never know. They might be smart people making mistakes. So,
Right.
but yeah, if you can keep it simple, you'll be much better off for it. And then the second one is the golden medium principle, which is don't do anything in extremes ever. You know, don't overfeed or underfeed. Don't go too hot thinking you're gonna, I don't know, get it to increase its metabolism. You know, don't go too cold thinking you're gonna get it to breed. Always keep it at that golden medium. And you'll know exactly what that is. There's like a consensus in the community of what that is. Keep it there, you know, and you'll be better off for it. Just those two things have been, I guess, they've been everything for me. They've just been my whole thought process behind everything from keeping to breeding. You know, the more you add, the more variables that there are, the more things that could go wrong. And don't self-justify by saying, oh, in the wild they're doing this or in the wild they're doing that, because you know what? In the wild they're also parasitic. They also have mites. They're also severely undersized. You know, it's dehydrated. They're not going to make it past like a certain age. You know,
It's a whole different standard.
Yeah.
And I don't know why people use that as an argument to try to compare lifestyles when most of the chondros that people are getting are several generations captive bred by now.
Yeah.
You know, and why are we trying to compare them to wild animals?
Don't offend me now. Remember, I got trash snakes that were plucked off of a branch pretty much.
No, hold up. But that's a whole different ballpark, right? You know, I liked the plucked, you know, snakes.
My personal opinion, I think it's a good baseline. I don't think it's something that should be written in the Bible, but I think it should be a roundabout baseline. It's what the snakes are tolerable to.
Right.
what do you mean?
You know, so basically, whatever the atmospheric conditions, temperature, humidity is in the wild is what God intended the animals to endure and be okay with. So if you can take from one extreme of their range to the other extreme, if you stay within those parameters with any animal that you just get, I think you'll be successful. Do I feel like you could probably push the limits on some captive stuff and play with some, you know, temperature figures and stuff like that? Maybe. But I really feel like whatever is going on, if you look up the weather forecast in any region that green tree pythons occur naturally in the wild, if you stick to that range, whether one extreme cold, one extreme hot, if you stick to that, I think you'll be successful. And eventually, if the animal is strong enough, it will adjust to those parameters that you're giving it. If you want to bump it up a couple degrees and have a hot spot, I mean, there are people that have hot spots that are, you know, close to 90 degrees. It happens. But they also have a cage big enough to escape it to the other extreme, if that makes any sense. I'm not saying that you can keep green tree pythons outside of the range that we deem it, you know, acceptable. But I feel like, you know, not that you're wrong or that anything on this episode was said wrong, but I do feel like a lot of people get too caught up in the numbers and reading books and having maybe too many chefs in the kitchen, and they get too worried about that one particular number of a degree they want to get to when they're using equipment that isn't exactly calibrated properly, and you might actually be achieving what they're, you know, the temperature that they're trying to get is not the actual temperature that they're trying to achieve. You know, their $12 Amazon laser gun might be saying it's 88 when really it's 86.
According to what?
I'm not saying it.
According to what?
Leave my temperature gun out of this. It did nothing wrong here. But long story short, basically what I'm trying to say in a whole nutshell here, the summary of it is, don't care them to death is my thing. A lot of people will care these animals to death, and for lack of better words, will be finger fucking them and just touching shit. Leave them alone. Get an acceptable temperature that is within the, you know, the range that you're describing, Garik. 84.5 is completely acceptable. It's absolutely perfect. You know, you can get it down to 83 in the hot spot. You can get it up to 88 in the hot spot as long as they can escape it. But I think that people just they think too much into it. I'm dealing with a couple people right now that are just overthinking it
Obsessively.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it's not
that was
good.
me, like the first snake I ever, when I got back into snakes and got a retic, right? Like I wanted things to be just like exact, right? And if it wasn't, I was adjusting the thermostat like 10 times a day.
Yeah.
And now it's well, now I keep ambient, but if my garage one day I wake up and it's I'm not trying to night cycle, but I wake up and my garage is a degree or two cooler than it should, I don't kick on the heat. I just wait for the sun to warm up the garage, right?
Right, but that's from having, so many animals and the experience and
realizing they're
just knowing
going to
what
be
they're
fine.
tolerable for. Yeah, exactly, correct. I wasn't trying to contradict anything that anybody said here. I just wanted to touch on that. It's something I'm really passionate about as far as carrying them to death. Like leave them alone. Like it's okay if something, if you're hotspot or you have a storm front come through or something happens and the snake's temperature in the hotspot because of your house, if you lose power, drops to, the low 80s or the high 70s, you're fine. Like it's okay. You don't have to take that snake, put it in a box and run it to your in-laws house or run it to your parents' house or to a friend's house to get it. They're okay. Like they are a little bit more tolerable of like atmospheric changes rather than relocation and basically carrying them to death. They don't need you to, like they're dinosaurs, like they're older than us. You know what I mean? Like they're going to be just fine.
I agree wholeheartedly with that. I also agree with what Garik was saying. I just as a general method, that like golden medium, right?
There we go.
Right.
That's basically what I'm proving is the golden medium. Don't go too extreme and don't be so precise. Like you don't need that shit. You don't need to be really precise.
We saw on one of the episodes that we had, I think it was with Ruben in that Texas winter storm that came in. He had his chondros that were, down in like 46 degrees and they were just coiled really tight, but they did fine for the time that they were in that temperature. And again, I'm not saying don't cool your nighttime lows to 46 degrees, please. But I mean, they're tolerable. But yeah, I think that golden medium, right? So like, again, if you're looking at their highs at 90 and their lows at 72, right? And trying to find a balance of like that hot spot and that nighttime drop is clearly somewhere in the middle between those two numbers, right?
Yeah. So you took the words out of my mouth, man. Like I was going to say it's that golden medium principle. And I think that's exactly what Chuck is describing too. Don't fuck with them till oblivion, to put it as bluntly as possible. It's, you're not going to achieve perfection. Let me put it like that. There is no such thing. But
not with these snakes.
Yeah, but you can achieve a very long-term, sustainable, near perfect environment for you or for where you're at. But I mean, yes, there are extremes, but obviously, like in the wild, they haven't escaped from that, and two, an accident could happen. It could get very hot. Your power could go off, and it could get like 90 degrees nearly in the house. Chances are your snake's gonna be fine for a while. You're fine. Your snake's probably gonna be fine too. However, if you're consistently subjecting them to a certain type of extreme, that's wrong. And I mean, you would see that happen. I mean, you don't see it these days, but if you go back into Tapatalk or if you go back into the original forums, you would see people's extreme methods of cycling, where they're like, oh, in the summers, it gets to, God knows, 95 degrees. In the winters, it gets to the low 40s. And people would swear by that because some of them even got results. So, no, I don't believe that necessarily just because it's in the wild, it's going to work. I mean, if they're subjected to it for like a day, an hour, they'll be fine. They're in their PVC insulated cage. By the time it reaches them, it's going to drop, a few degrees? But it's that golden medium.
Yeah,
so
that's why I'll let you guys deal with the freaking thermostats and hearing the beeping in your sleep. I'm chilling with my ambient.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I apologize if that came off like I was contradicting you, Garrett, but I was that golden medium was like an affirmation basically to what I always try to preach to people is like set it and forget it and leave them alone. Like don't touch them. Like you as well as I do and being, as much of as big as a breeder and successful and how many animals you have out there is, you've been through it a lot more than I have, and I'm going through it a little bit more now with folks keeping my animals. Is just make sure if you're a responsible breeder, you know, buy a $12 temp gun from Amazon and get in the range, get where you need to be. Like, I don't recommend a $12 temp gun. My temp gun's it was a couple dollars more than that, but
I mean, if you've checked the calibration on the Spider robotics, it's very accurate. The herp stat.
Oh, yes, it is. Damn right it is. Yeah, they're fantastic.
Yeah,
there's nothing better.
And the VE is very good too. I mean, it's very, very good. Oftentimes I put them both side by side and they read the same thing. In fact, I have an information page on my website where I list everything step by step, how to do it. But, very often people can get very confused by wording, or, some people are auditory, some people are visual learners, and
some people are anxious learners.
Yeah. So if you bought from a breeder, one of the best things that you can do is pick up the phone, call them, and be like, listen, I set it up, but let me walk you through it, check it out, make sure it's okay. Because you never know, because you could tell people, like, set the probe to this much and put the probe so and so, like, they might not know where the probe goes if you didn't show them, or if you didn't have a picture of it, or or they might improvise in such a way that they don't think is a big deal, but it could be. It's important to go through these things with your breeder initially, I guess, before you get it, and then hit them up, say like, oh, hey, like, I'm having a little bit of trouble,
Right.
Yeah, it's the fear of the unknown. The best way I can describe it, and I describe it to people all the time, is I always have videos. Like, I have videos from soup to nuts, feeding neos, reinsertion of prolapses, whatever, to give to people. And if I don't have it, I'll call somebody who's a friend who's a breeder who does have that type of video. But it's basically like, you lose your car keys in your house, right? You have no idea where they are. But when you find them, you're like, oh my God, how did I not find that? It was so obvious. So like you're saying, the probe placement can be extremely confusing, because if you have a heat panel that's up, and I don't know if you, had this, and it was a battle that I had at the beginning. You have a heat panel that's on the top, and on the bottom, you have a perch. And in the middle, that thermostat probe, mine at least, have to be set to a couple degrees lower than what the perch temp is. So how does that make sense? Because the perch is lower, the heat panel's higher, the heat rises, right? So whatever's in between it, the probe, should be set at a higher temp if you're thinking theoretically, but it's not, because that snake and that perch are a mass that soak up heat and retain that heat. And it's a bigger mass than what that stainless steel probe is. So you get a more heat retention on the perch, with the probe holding less of that and having air exchange to basically cool it off. It's a mind fuck is what it is. And you don't quite understand it until you've just done it. And then now you did it and you have somebody to explain it to you. You're like, oh, okay, I'm just going to set the thermostat to 2 degrees lower than what I want the perch temp to be. And that's what you're achieving.
So I know exactly what you're referring to. Personally, I set my probe exactly at the perch level, so I don't have to like set it 2 degrees lower or higher and then have to overthink that, for the next.
Right. Dude, that's two inches. It's 2 inches of probe placement, and probe placement is everything. It's freaking everything.
Yeah.
Depending on even in your incubator, sometimes probe placement. I mean, that's very important. But yeah, that's why it's so important. Like Garik, like you teaching your customers and me teaching my customers how we do things differently. Having too many chefs in the kitchen, they can be asking me what temp I should set, they should set it at, and then asking you where to put the probe, and then it's all messed up.
Exactly. I couldn't have worded it better. I really couldn't have. People are achieving similarly good results with slightly different methods, but if let's say you're not the best at analyzing situations, maybe just stick to one way. Don't try mixing and matching. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And then some people have 3D printed perch, 3D printed probe little arms that come down and hold it, and that's a completely different ball game. Even I think that the perch being horizontal as opposed to vertical is a huge influencer on how that stainless steel accepts that heat and gives a reading to the actual thermostat. Probe placement is so crucial, and it's never really talked about.
Garik, where do you put your probe?
Depends. I mean, if it's on an adult cage, I have like a little hole that right underneath the heater. I try to patch it up as much as possible. So in that area, I don't see too much air exchange, but I put it through there and it stands erect at the exact same level as the perch. So,
Okay.
Yeah. In fact, all my perches are PVC. They're straight PVC. So, the snake doesn't get a chance to pick which side of the perch is thinnest or tallest. It's going to go to wherever it wants a certain amount of heat, whether it's the cold end or the hot end. That's kind of like reducing the amount of variables that are at play there. So.
Right.
And it's and another thing, and I'll stop my bullshit rant. But what I do is I do this little tiny knot on the power cord, retention clip, and I angle on a 45. I bend that wire, and it just sits on a 45 tucked underneath of the heat panel. When some people just hang it next to the heat panel, dude, that is an unbelievable amount of variation to have a probe hanging straight down outside of the heat panel's radiant heat zone, or angling it directly under at a 45.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Honestly, it's beautiful wording too, because oftentimes people aren't too mindful of what's going on near that probe. And if you read the instructions on the heat equipment, whether it be the heat panel or the heating tape, it says to put it directly on it. And I believe that's there for, of course, their own safety, so they don't get sued, like if something goes wrong. But essentially, I know you love your heat guns, man, but I personally think there's a lot of it's not the most accurate form of measuring. So it's going to be very difficult to I guess achieve whatever temperature you want at the area that you want it when that probe is touching the heat panel, be it in a rack, because that probe is essentially outside of the tub. There could be air exchanges in there, and 1 second it can hit 60 degrees, the other second it can hit 90. It's very hard to control that. It's touching 90 from the heat tape, but the cool air is coming through. It's that's
it's a good point.
This. It's a lot. It's a lot to think about.
Dude. And that's why that was the main thing that drove me to ambient. I was so tired of the science behind every new enclosure, every new heat panel. Everything was always slightly different, and I was like, I'm gonna just go ambient.
That's because you Cowboys fans are weird.
I'm not a Cowboys fan. I'm a Texans fan.
Are you doing 82 ambient or 88, 80?
It fluctuates. So, my daytime highs are 83, 84. My nighttime lows, out of the winter season, out of like the cool down time is about like 81. And then once it gets to winter, I still keep a daytime high at around like 83, but I let my nighttime cools drop to like 76, 75.
Perfect.
You're not seeing any variation like near the walls. I mean, everything's very well insulated, I'm guessing.
Yeah. So I spent over 20 grand on my garage.
Okay. Yeah.
So I got bulletproof insulation and a mini split that's regulating it. I got sensor pushes all over my garage. I have 4 different fans that are circulating air across the entire place. So I think the most vast temperature range that I have, if I put a thermostat or a temperature, one of the sensor pushes, if I put it by the garage door and I put the other one that's next to the insulated wall by the inside of the house, the biggest variation I get during the day is 1 degree.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right. So I hate to end this conversation. Do we have anything to add to it?
No, I just wanted to say, I think Garik's underestimating your temp gun. It literally can see you naked, if it wanted to. But outside of that, no. I guess as far as husbandry wise, I want to know: do you spray?
Oh, absolutely. I've never been one to say, don't spray. And in fact, I believe back when I first got started, it was like a thing where people were all pushing, don't spray your snake directly. Make sure you check the temperature of the water before you spray it. Let me be the first to tell you it's all horseshit. You know, spray your snake directly. Spray it more if it's going through a shed.
Hose it. Hose your
I'm
snake
the
directly. That's
same
what I
way.
do.
I do
It
too.
rains on them in a while.
If it's a hatchling snake, you might as well submerge it in water. But in all seriousness, I spray, you know, and typically, I mean, I have like a few reasons why. If it's like a hatchling, you'll spray to maintain as high of a humidity as possible until it's first shed. Afterwards, everything becomes the same. So I just spray if I needed to poop or if I am expecting a shed and need its humidity to be higher. Otherwise, I mean, I don't check for humidity. I don't have a what's it called, hygrometer or whatever.
Hygrometer?
Hygrometer.
But I can tell you for a fact that I don't get 100% humidity in anything, nor would I want to. You know, I mean, I have 1/6 to 1/8 approximately inch gap for all of my tubs in the racks, and I have a decent number of air holes in my cages. Again, if you do too much, you will dry out your snake. So just be mindful of that. You do too little, and you're gonna start noticing like a shed head that's just coming even before it sheds. You know, and that happens when it can't breathe, literally. So, and if it didn't shed out its plug, like the nose plugs, you're gonna notice it's messing with the snake if it's constantly in very high humidity. I don't recommend that. So, but yeah, I spray.
Oh, feeding real quick. Rats, mice combo. What's that like?
So I do mice essentially up until they're adults, and even when they're adults, I'm still giving them jumbo mice. But for breeder females, occasionally I'll toss in like a rat, like no, probably a little bit bigger than a jumbo mouse. So I do it according to their body size too. I don't like to give them too big of a prey item. Not because they can't handle it, because they definitely could. It's just more so these animals are already getting fed plenty. You know, they don't need to be pushed that hard, even when breeding. You know.
Oh my God, you would have a heart attack if I told you what my last female had just laid 8.
What?
When I
Medium rat.
a medium rat every week for 4 weeks in a row.
Oh, okay. That's quite a bit, but I don't know what you mean by medium rat, because different people describe medium rats as different sizes, and I don't know how big your female is. I think that's equally as important.
She's about 1,000 to 1,100 grams, so she's not huge, but she is a larger female. But yeah, and the medium rats are they're fairly accurate, I think, for a medium, because I do feed
to 120 grams.
I'll weigh one tomorrow.
Where do you get your medium rats from?
So I get Lane Labs. So I mean, but they changed it almost everywhere. Changes sizes. I feel like.
No, I'm asking Chuck.
Oh,
The ones I have left are from a local breeder, so they're hefty.
I'll say this: a medium rat on Cold Blooded Cafe, our sponsor, is 85 to 175 grams.
That's a pretty big.
It's a range.
5 to what?
That is a
So 175 grams.
But 85 to 175. That's quite a large range. I'd have to get a more accurate measurement on the ones that I fed Deep Blue during her last clutch.
Mine are typically in like the 120 gram range when I get them from CBC.
Is that what you give the chondros?
No, I don't feed. No, so my Aru female, she's taking small rats right now. Everything is under, and it's every couple weeks, right? And that's just she's about 5 years old, long term captive import, and once I start getting her to cycle, I'm going to take her down to adult mice every week.
When you say small rat, I mean adult mice. That's a huge difference, though. Like in size.
Yeah, I want to take down the size but increase the frequency pretty.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
makes
So instead of going 2-3 weeks each meal, I'm gonna go to every 7 days.
Mm.
At least
Okay.
that's what I'm gathering so far.
I got to get a
based off of
measurement for
talking to
you
everyone.
guys.
But let's get into, since we're talking about breeding, because that's the one thing that I hate the most about doing this podcast is hearing all of you do this 1,000 different ways.
You
Chuck,
ready?
yeah, Chuck, this is when I like you to kind of take over a little bit and start talking about breeding stuff.
All right. Let's kick it off with pairing, preparation for pairing, with cycling, both or all three: food, light, temperature. What are you doing?
So I don't do lights. I don't have lights in my cages actually, and I don't have a room light that turns on. So that's one thing. 2, temperatures. I do a night drop.
Hold up. Do you have windows in your room?
Yeah, they're very
Okay,
large.
so there's I guess ambient lighting.
Yeah. I just mean like it. There's no like intrusive lighting in the cages themselves that turn on like 8 hours a day, and then in winter 6 hours or anything like that.
Yeah.
I think that's probably more. I don't think there's very much that's beneficial from that personally. As far as temperature, cycling, I do that one. So I do just a lower nighttime temperature around the times where I want to breed them. So I'll drop it from like 81 to 78, essentially anywhere from 76 to 78. You know, I don't do anything too crazy. I mean, I've gone lower than that. The first year that I bred, I went to 74, but shortly after, you know, I say this all the time. I think us as breeders, we give ourselves a lot more credit than we deserve. I think a lot of it has to come down to the snakes themselves, and then we just help them get there, if that makes sense, to have better clutches. And by better, I just mean we give them ample food, so you don't have too many windows in your eggs. You know, we harvest those eggs pretty quick, so they don't, I guess, dry out from whatever temperature there is in the cage or whatever the case is. That's what I mean. But essentially, as each year that goes on, I find that the less invasive I am with my cycling, with my whatever, I get just as good of results, if not slightly better, and it's slightly less stressful on the snakes. It's just, believe me when I say, like, it's keep it simple applies to everything that I do. It's so that's as far as temperature. As far as feeding goes, once again, I've tried both ways, which is like a fast prior to breeding, you know, and then a pump while breeding, and the reverse. And I've also done it just regularly, where I've gone every 2 weeks and then slightly bumped it up, like the frequency, and it's the same results nearly year round. It really is. And I've taken notes on it, you know, and I've done like just a few pairings each season with different methods, and it's just, I don't know. That's why I say I don't think necessarily it's anything like your results are not going to vary that much, you know, from doing it one way or another, so long as you're breeding a female chondro that's decent size and a male that's ready to go, you know, he has mature sperm, the results aren't going to vary that much. They really won't.
Right. And then after you get your ovulation out of the female, when are you adding the lay box, and what does the lay box look like if you're even using one?
So when am I? Okay, so after ovulation, so some people will go by days after their shed. Me personally, I've seen females skip their pre-lay shed, so I go by days after ovulation. Typically, I'll add it in around day 30 to 35. Day 30 to 33, I'll add it in approximately. I've never seen on my snakes a female that lays prior to day 33 or 34 after their ovulation or their mid-body swell. That was like the soonest I've seen. Typically, what I see is day 40 to 47, depending on, again, various factors. how big the clutch is, how cold the ambient temperatures are. But usually it's good to have it in a little bit before to get the female just introduced to it. She doesn't think it's some, and it's a sterilite tub. So before I tried getting those tubs that are darker plastics, and they work just as well as the see-through sterilite tubs, man. Like, I'm telling you, you just cut a hole on the top and you let the snake go down.
Right.
Real quick before we go into the next phase of this, at what point are you doing introductions?
Ooh, so I like to start mine sometime in October, unless it's a female that I already know, like, goes at a specific time of the year, which I have a few females that literally will ovulate and lay on almost the exact same day as they did the year prior, no matter how early I start them. So, for example, if it's Siren, I already know anything that I pair prior to mid-January is going to be fruitless. For Blue Jay, she takes only in late spring. Same thing with Xenon, late spring. And I've started them in October, and it wasn't until late spring, around in May, that they both laid, and both clutches were laid within like a day's worth of difference from one another within 2 years of time. Like, different. Sorry, I know that got really jumbled. I just mean they laid on the same day the following year.
Right. No, yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. So,
and what's the most consecutive years you've ever bred a female before?
2. So 2 seasons, and then I'll give them 2 seasons off.
Okay.
So, yeah, even though some will be able to handle it, I don't think the question anyone should be asking themselves is, could it handle it? Should I push it? I think it's more so, what's your rush?
Right.
You can wait on it and get a better clutch the following year. She'll have more time to eat, without having been pushed. Her body will adjust naturally and faster. So I think a back-to-back clutch would be probably the most I would go, and then I would give them a couple of years off.
Gotcha. Okay. And then what's the, egg collection and egg box setup? What exactly is your egg box? Media in the egg box, and how many air holes? What container is it?
So mine is it's a discontinued style of gift box from the Container Store.
You see what I mean? Everyone's so different.
Yeah, but essentially it's the same thing. It doesn't matter what box it goes in, so long as your box isn't, I guess, wobbly, so long as it can hold the decent amount of water in there. As far as air exchange, I don't believe that you necessarily need it in the first 40 days. Maybe in the last 10. I mean, that's when nowadays I poke less air holes than I did before. I used to pre-poke them and then pop open the stickers that I would keep them shut in, because I would put stickers on the holes. Yeah, I do that in the last 10 days, but I don't know. These days I just do a couple air holes. I open them up around the last 10 days, 8 days, and that's more than enough for them, I guess.
And what's your incubation temperatures throughout incubation?
87 first 40 days, 85 last 10. Or rather the last 12, because I don't get chondros that really hatch on day 50. They do on 51 to 53 and a half. So,
and then when you're doing the temperature drop, is it gradual in increments, or is it all at once on day 40?
No, it's all at once. Shock the eggs, as some people have told me, like, oh, you're shocking the eggs like that. But I was like,
no, I did a 1 degree drop on 40 this time because a bigger clutch. It worked out great.
Yeah, surprise, it's me.
Yeah. And then when you get your first pip, what are your what are you cutting?
3. Oh, I don't cut the eggs prior to the first pip. In fact, this year, of all of my clutches, after every clutch, I waited even longer to cut the eggs. And guess what? The results were the same. I feel like that's a common theme in this podcast right now, me saying that, but that's what I mean by, you'd be surprised at how little interference that you might need to do with these snakes. After the first pip, you can essentially, if you want 3 hours later, cut them right away. That's what I did when I first got started. The last clutch I did, I just kept going in, removing the eggs that would hatch into their own things and their own tubs, and letting the rest hatch their own way.
Oh wow. Okay, so when they're pipped, they're going into tubs. You're saying?
Oh, so when I incubate, essentially, the box that I have them in is not the same box that I put them in after they pip. So that one thing I do change. So after the first pip, I'll move them into just an average 16-quart Sterilite tub, and I'll just lay them all out like that.
Okay, but still in the incubator.
Sorry, I'm getting confused. After I cut, I lay them out into that separate bin. After I've cut them.
Okay, but they're not individual bins in a rack. They're in a separate bin communally.
Yeah. So what I do is, let's say the first one that pipped, I'll take that one out. I'll put it in its cage or in its tub in the rack, right? And then the rest of them will like come out, or as they will. Maybe like the next day I'll get a few more, and I might put those in the tub. And then eventually, when I see, okay, now a large majority are starting to pip, I'll cut the few others that haven't yet, and I'll move all of them, including the ones that were in their individual tub, into a big communal tub, so that they can spend the next few days there. I'll take a very pretty photo and post it on Instagram, and then after that, they go in their individual tub. Sorry,
Gotcha.
that's a mouthful, but it's a weird process. Essentially, there's no difference to doing it that way than there is to just cutting, and then putting them all into the 16-quart hatch box. Is that what you would call it? Yeah. So one is an incubation box, the other one is a hatch box.
Yeah, you so many steps to this.
Yeah, the only reason why I do it like that is because I personally don't like the idea of vermiculite touching a baby. I don't know why, but I just, there's something about it that just irks me.
Are you using a sim method, or are they directly into the substrate, the eggs?
No,
you're
I
incubating?
have a couple of egg crates. I cut them up, I put them on. So no.
And what are they over? Are they over water? Are they over heavily saturated perlite or vermiculite, or?
Yeah. So vermiculite, I've tried a mixture of vermiculite and perlite. It's the same thing. No difference. Just so long as you have a decent amount in there, you'll be fine.
Mm-hmm.
Just enough so that you get humidity in that box. That's it. That's what that's there for. That medium is not there for, I guess, any other reason other than keeping your water from sloshing. So
right.
Or for holding water. That's all it is.
Good. That was quick incubation questions.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess let's wrap up on like the I guess some of the most challenging parts, but they're hatching now. We're getting them established.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, I mean, just go through that process. I'm kind of curious on what methods have worked for you. With the animals that you're working, some of them 3-4 generations in. Are you seeing differences between vitality and that just size of babies, that kind of stuff?
Ooh. So as far as establishing them goes versus the size, I think they're a little different, I guess, questions, because I would say the sizing has a lot more to do with A, genetics, B, how well the incubation was, and then C, oftentimes even if, let's say, A and B were just solid, it'll come down to how big that egg was that was laid. That's what it is. If they absorbed all the yolk, they're not going to get bigger than whatever size the egg is. So I guess that at least that's hatchlings. Now, as far as growth rate goes, that's its own thing completely. And you won't know that for the first couple months, because oftentimes in the first couple months, breeders give like a preference to prettier babies. You just notice that either they're slightly overfeeding or they're slightly underfeeding. Right. Everyone knows that, like they're either kind of scared, like, oh shit, like I don't know if it can handle it, or no, or maybe I don't want to push it, or they'll be like, you know what, let this motherfucker get nice and plump, and I guess if in the first couple months that plays a lot more preference or a lot more of a role than it does later down the line. Later down the line, the genetics will kick in. So you'll see that probably around the time they're like 5 months to 12 months old, if you keep the same exact feeding schedule on all of the snakes, you'll start noticing that some of them are taking off. It could be because it's a female, could be just because it just got the good genes. Who knows? I mean, they all take off, but there's a difference between, let's say, a yearling that's 150, 160 grams, that's already good size, and then one that's like 250, 260, and you're like, this thing is the freak of nature, But that's as far as sizing goes. So as far as taking goes, there's no difference between, I guess, from what I've seen, the F1 generation and the F4 generation. It oftentimes it might even come down to, again, the parents. So some parents will produce much larger eggs. Like Blue Jays eggs are massive, massive, massive. I mean, some of those babies come out like and I'm speaking of which, as a majority, it could be an Aru thing. Some of those will come out like 16 grams as a baby. Like they're just big, and whereas, let's say, you might get more of a variation in a pure Hearland clutch, where you might get some that are 10 grams, 11 grams, which is a good size. And you might get some that are, again, like 16, 17 and girthy, you'll get a little bit more of a variation like that. And I guess wider ranges with more Highlandy stuff. I do notice that animals that are heavier in poultry blood, so Western blood, which is Sarong, Manokwari, whatever, those tend to be on the smaller end. Even as babies, even from all the stock that I've produced, the ones that have a little more concentrated amounts of poultry blood, they're also the only ones that are they'll eat, but they might like be a little more finicky to get started. You know what I mean? Or
Okay.
They might be 2 months in there eating great, but they might just be like, you have to open the tub to make sure like they didn't drop, like
Right.
still great eaters, fully established, just princessy.
Are you doing any check down? Are you doing any scenting? Yeah.
Yeah. So the first meal usually is chick down, and then the second meal I try to abandon that completely to see whichever ones actually needed it and whichever ones are fine without it. Almost always, I want to say like 85-90% will take even without the chick down on the second meal or the third. And the 5 that don't take with it, you just put like a little hair on it and you give it and it takes. So the past few years this isn't even showboating, dude. This is like one of the things I am most proud of. I don't know if it's luck. I don't know if my technique is better. I haven't had any like need to assist these babies. Like they've just been easier to get started. I think a lot of that will come down to technique personally. I mean, I don't think I've changed very much in my incubation. It's almost nothing. If it's not broken, why fix it?
Mm-hmm.
So I've had really good incubation from the beginning. Haven't changed very much. So no, I ruled that out. And then as time went on, of course, I still did the same. I did F1s, I did F2s, and I have done, I guess, like other stuff, F3. But no, there's really, it's not because it's more captive bred that the babies are easier. In fact, all of my Womaniac clutches are straight F1. The parents are wild caught.
Right.
I don't see any struggles with that, except for the first time I ever did it back in 2021, where I struggled. And again, I really do think technique plays a huge role in this.
I know that it's hard to verbalize technique, but do you want to give that a shot? I know that that's a weird thing to try to verbalize, but
yeah, I think it comes down to patience, really. I think the biggest difference between me now and me when I first got started was that patience, dude. Like I was going in that first clutch after a while, like I was being a lot more aggressive with it, and that's never gonna work, with these snakes. Like, or it might work, but it didn't yield me good results. When a snake doesn't eat, you're a little more gentle. You have to be persistent and annoying, but not overwhelming. You know what I mean? It cannot be thinking like it's on the verge of death. It needs to run out of there. It needs to think there's a fucking like buzzing that I need to get rid of. That's
a gnat.
That's
Yeah.
what it needs to be thinking. Anything,
Perfectly described. Don't beat the shit out of him.
yeah. Anything else? You like for let's say maybe one that's a little bit more timid than another snake, you know, which just on sight, like it's green light. I see you. You're done. You know, like if it's not like that, let's say it's a little more shy. You gotta just be persistent with it. You can't let the snake win either. What I mean by that is so many keepers give up the second that snake tucks its head in. You have no, they throw away the pinky. I'll try again next week. Why? Keep going. Like the snake's head is in there. It doesn't want to see you, you know, just pull its head out and let it know that you're there. And that's when you just, I guess, do these movements, you know, whether it be like you whip it back and forth, you know, you poke it, you know, you're in its face and you're just consistent with it. And then when you notice that snake, it might be on the verge of shutting down, you close the tub, you wait a few minutes and you try it again. So thank God I haven't had to deal with things like that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I guess really also makes you more excited to want to breed is, I mean, I produced 63 this year. And to think if I had like multiple that were like that, I don't think I would even attempt to get numbers like that. You know, I would probably cut my pairing short and go for a much smaller clutch where I can focus in a lot more. But knock on wood, not a single one went that way for me.
You know, that's pretty freaking impressive. I mean, out of all the people that we've talked to and like the difficulties with getting established, to hear that you've had some pretty, you've had more success than not is I guess for me, who's going to be doing first pairings this year, it's good to hear.
Well, Lucas, I don't post up a lot of my failures either. There's that too, though. I mean, I know it's always fun on social media. People see the clutches and they see the numbers, but you know, I got a slug clutch this year. You know, and it was one of the clutches I was most excited for. So I mean, I didn't post that up, but it happened. You know, it happens. You know, it's
right. I think it's part of the green tree python game, right? There's going to be failures.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'm vocal about them though. Like if people want to know, or when I'm on these podcasts, I will talk about that stuff very openly, you know, and who knows, maybe somebody will learn from it. Maybe somebody might recognize a pattern and be like, you know what, maybe that could be a reason why, you know, like people get slug clutches, but who knows? For me, it's still currently a mystery. The only thing I can chalk it up to is wrong timing.
Right.
Who knows?
Human error. Human error.
Yeah, it could be.
We did something wrong.
Absolutely, it very well could be that.
Garik, man, I want to thank you for coming on. And before we kind of just like wrap everything up, I want to give you an opportunity to kind of just plug in all of your social media and like where people can find you, where people can reach you. You have a phenomenal, and I mean phenomenal website. I'm actually, I want to share this here. Let me see if I can actually get this up real quick. But in the meantime, like I said, I'd like for you to kind of just share. Really? Right when I freaking go to do it, it says, of course.
So, yeah.
Anyways, yeah, go for it. Just drop your plugs, and I'll try to get your website pulled up here.
Yeah. The Instagram is thehouseofblue.official. The Facebook page is the House of Blue. So, and then the website is, I believe, thehouseofblue.com. So it's all very standard like that. If people are using Facebook, you can also just message me at Garik Gukasyan. So yeah. Oh, and there's the website.
Yep. Yeah, it's a phenomenal website. And what I love about it is you have a lot of detailed information on buyer guide. You know, you have an awesome, an awesome availability page that has all the information you basically outline. Please read the buyer guide. Please go to the clutch page. And then you have your clutches here for the year with the incubation process, pictures, all that good stuff. Really good website, man. It's simple, it's straightforward, it's nothing too fancy, but it still looks really nice.
I see the probes. Look at the probes.
Go up and click on one of them. Click on X that out and look at the page itself. Scroll down. If you exit out, these are just photos. Scroll. You can see pictures of babies and stuff too with their IDs. So
okay.
If you keep scrolling. Oh wait, no, this is the wrong page. Yeah, click on that one.
Down here.
Either up. Go up to. One more. There you go. Click on this one. X that out. Scroll. Oh my God, it's not showing it for you for some reason. Anyway, whatever the case is. Yeah, I guess it's messing up. But if you click on it, if you're using your phone, you can scroll down and it can show you like each individual baby's photo with their ID tagged on it and all the information about the pairing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great website, man.
Yeah, I need to update this page too with more of my keepers. I guess I had quite a few from this year, they're very obvious keepers. So.
Garik, any last kind of words that you want to share to anybody that's getting into breeding, anyone who's getting into keeping chondros? A lot of the people that are starting to listen to this podcast are people that are wanting to get into it. Any thoughts on that before we wrap up?
Yeah. So you want to get into it? That's absolutely fantastic. I would say do your research, ahead of time. Don't go in with just these expectations, it's going to be a certain way. Understand that what you're getting, you're getting an animal, and you should aim to get an animal that's healthy, that fits your vision of what you want. Don't get an animal just to get it. Get an animal if you must have it. Right. That's how I got started. That's how I would recommend you guys all do it. Know what if you can, of course, know what you want to work with before, do your research, talk to breeders, and don't get discouraged either. There's that as well. That's a pretty big one. I would say there are a lot of people out there that tell you these snakes are either aggressive or difficult to breed, or they're just not worth working with, just their failure rate is high. But you know what? If anything, rise up to the challenge. So,
right, man. Appreciate having you on.
Thank you. Appreciate being on.
Thanks for coming,
absolutely.
Brother.
Yeah, we'll have to catch up next time that you're at Bill's or somewhere else. But looking forward to meeting you in person. To actually know each other in person now. But yeah, we'll catch up soon, man.
Absolutely. Likewise. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Take it easy.
Thanks for coming on, bro.
All right, Chuck, episode 12. That's a wrap.
Yeah.
I'm just staring at you right now. That's okay. Guys, thank you for listening in on this episode. This is a breeder that I definitely look up to. His animals are absolutely phenomenal. Someone who is haven't even done their first pairing, getting to see the success of other people is a motivating factor. Guys, if you are tuning in for the first time, please hit subscribe. You'll also find the Retake Lounge on there. We're working on trying to get a couple other podcasts with other species going as well. Please comment, share this episode if you guys liked it. Helps us kind of just get the good information out. Chuck, you got anything else before we wrap up?
Nah, I talk more than enough on this episode. I shut my mouth.
All right, everyone. We'll see you in a couple weeks on the next episode of the Chondro Lounge.
Y'all take care.